everyone. Today I'll focus on digitization in logistics industry. Mostly I'll focus on what the current structure is in the industry, and I'll use some of the use cases where we have been able to use technology and the resources to make operational improvements.
फिर वो बना भी 9 बज जाएंगे कितना
Amol Shah. Introduction about me. My name is Amol. I'm the CEO at Freight Tiger. We are the tech startup. We have developed unified platform for transportation for the logistics in Indian industry. So to start with, we all know logistics industry is very complicated. When you talk about logistics, you can talk from demand forecasting, production planning, inventory planning, very complicated industry. Considering the time limit today, I'll focus on mostly transportation industry. So when you talk about transportation, the process starts when there is an order, sales order for any consignor. That's when they have identified the need for the vehicle. Then there is a process for plant dispatch, vehicle finding process, then the vehicle leaves the plant, and then you have the delivery confirmation and the payment process. So today I'll focus on this process to talk about digitization. Now the process itself seems very simple, but if you look at all the data points from tag for vehicle placement, tag for loading, tag for unloading, tag for transit time, running time, stoppage time, you have thousands of routes in India, thousands of loading points, unloading points. So that tells you the complexity of the transportation process. So we have all of these critical data points which are involved in the transportation process. But the current challenge in the industry is all of those data points are managed very separately. So a lot of times we don't even have data in the industry because a lot of processes are done manually. And if the processes are done automatically, if we look at the supply chain in India, we have a consignor, then we have 3PL companies, then we have logistics companies, then we have transporters, brokers, drivers. So what happens is all of those stakeholders use their own different applications. And implication of that is all of these critical data points are distributed across all different systems. Makes it very difficult to come up with any analytics or find any insights. Then the second point talks about is lack of integration. When all of that data is in different systems, the integration of the data becomes very difficult. Also, we have learned that a lot of times that data is not collected real time. What that means is the process happens and there is a manual record of when that process happened and that is entered into the database. So that means there is no real-time data collection for those critical processes. And the other finding we have is we have different applications used in the industry. So you can look at ERP, you can look at TMS. There are some companies which have the payment modules, but there is no software application that exists that would bring all stakeholders and all the processes end-to-end on one platform. That creates a very critical challenge for the industry. We all talk about digitization, but here we have tried to quantify the cost drivers because of lack of digitization. And in our hypothesis, the first one is account payable variance. Currently, it's a standard practice in the market where when the vehicle reaches the destination point, the driver has to carry the physical POD back to transporter, Then transporter would consolidate a lot of PODs and then submit it to the consignor. What happens in this case is there is a lot of time lag, and then multiple systems have the amount of freight rate inputted into their own systems. So one thing we learned is sometimes when drivers drive back, the PODs are either torn or there is oil on it. When they submit it to transporter, it's very difficult to know if there were any exceptions like detention, what was the freight rate. So you end up having different quantities or different amounts in all of the different systems. We believe that the consignors end up paying up to 2% of the freight cost just because of this variance. Then the second one is the whole POD flow. When the physical proof of delivery has to be driven back, sometimes it takes 2 to 3 months for the POD to be back. That means there is a working capital engaged. And if you look at the supply chain, if you look at logistics companies or transportation companies, even though they are putting the working capital, the interest on that working capital is baked into freight rates. In the end, it's being paid by the manufacturing companies. Then the third one is the low truck utilization. Here, at the most, only 10 to 20% of the trucks provide visibility for the transportation. That means there is lack of visibility across India, and that lack of visibility leads to the underutilization of the assets. The fourth one is the operational efficiencies. We talked about TAT at loading, unloading, transit time analysis. So just because we don't have the clear data and analytics, it prevents us from coming up with operational improvements as rapidly as it would happen in the Western world. That leads to operational inefficiencies. And the last one is, as we talked about, when this data exists in all different applications, when there is a lot of manual input of the data, all the companies have a lot of overhead which could be reduced by automating some of those processes. So what do we do about this? We talked about the process is very complex. We talked about either the processes happen manually or if they happen automatically, the data is on all different applications. So thought is, if you can imagine one connected digital platform that can automate end-to-end process. And what I mean by that is, there are 3 pillars. So imagine a unified platform where all of the freight movements happen and you have all the supply chain stakeholders onto our platform. Meaning you have a manufacturing company, they might have 10, 20, 30 plants. Imagine every single plant head has access to one system. Every logistics team is on this platform. You have central logistics team, they use the same platform, and your CXO level has access to this platform. And on top of that, you bring in all transportation companies, your consignees, and that one platform becomes single version of truth for the transportation system. And that's what we call unified platform. The second one is, this platform becomes very important, or the utility goes high when you have visibility into 100% of the movements. As I said, today only about 10 to 20% of the movements are being tracked through IoT devices. But as you all know, lot of manufacturing companies use market vehicles, and there is no GPS or portable tracker is not used. That means once the vehicle leaves the manufacturing plant, most of the time people don't know where the vehicle is. And again we get feedback from our customers is, their customers, meaning consignees, tell them, if I order something worth 100 rupees on Amazon or Swiggy, I know exactly where my order is. But when I'm ordering something worth in crores, I have no idea where the vehicle is. So visibility becomes very critical. And then once you have the unified platform and once you have the visibility, you have access to data which we did not have before. And once we have the data, we know what are the top root causes for the operational inefficiencies which would enable us to come up with the action plan to improve those. And some of the standard outcomes is reduced losses for the consignors. Having that visibility and unified platform would completely change the strategy for sales and distribution for a lot of consignors, drastically improve the efficiencies, and then the simple automated workflow. To kind of demonstrate some of these benefits, I'll talk about a few use cases quickly. Look at this chart. Currently, if you don't have visibility, the truck might take 4 days, 6 days, 10 days to reach destination. We don't know what are the reasons which are leading to the delays in transit time. When you put GPS on it, you know now vehicle has stopped or moving. But we go above and beyond to do the analysis on even why the vehicle has stopped at any certain point. And I'll talk about control tower operations in like 5 minutes. But as a manufacturer, imagine you having visibility into this kind of stoppage analysis. Month over month, how many stoppages happened at loading point, unloading point, in transit, and what were the top root causes to contribute to those stoppages. Based on this analysis, you can come up with the transporter scorecard. You can compare your performance by route, by transporter, by loading locations, by loading times. Imagine the power of that data and analytics. It would enable the logistics team to come up with the improvements to improve those operations. So this is one example. At the bottom, it talks about escalation. When the vehicle stops for 3 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, you don't want to inform every single person involved in stakeholder. So we have defined the escalation matrix. If the vehicle doesn't move for 5 to 6 hours, goes to transporter. After 12 hours, goes to first level manager of logistics. After 36 hours, goes to plant head. So having that visibility about stoppage analysis would be critical. And I'll cover a couple of more use cases. The second one is very interesting, one of my favorite use cases. We worked with one of the customers where they found out most of their transit times were violated based on their SLAs. The distance wasn't that long, but somehow they were missing 50% of the delivery timelines. Once we had the visibility, we identified few spots where most of the trucks were stopping. The initial inclination for anyone is the truck driver is resting there, so the vehicle has stopped. What we did is we analyzed about 700 trips on that route, and our finding was, based on the loading times, the time truck was reaching the destination, it used to be no entry time zone. So driver did not want to rest, no one wanted that stoppage, but the reason it was happening because by the time consignees would place the sales order, by the time manufacturing company would identify a vehicle and when the vehicle would leave, based on the transit time, it happened that the vehicle would reach at no entry time zone. With this data, we had a workshop with our customer logistics team, marketing team, and we came up with the idea about within certain time slot, prioritizing the movements on this route. What that did is majority of the movements which were missing SLAs actually started reaching the destination on time, and also to achieve that, our consignor came up with the cutoff times for the orders. And the consignees were not happy for a week because it put some limit on them on when they need to put the order by to receive within 60 hours. But within 1 week, majority of the shipments started happening in the time zone we had defined. We were able to reduce 18% transit time as part of this analysis. And the good example here is, this is where we use the control tower operations team and the technology to analyze the problem. Another example I'll talk about is, as we're talking about digitization, currently if you look at any movement, the way you can get the ETA is you can look at the Google map that will tell you how long it would take based on the kilometers. But when you think about a truck, Google Maps ETA is almost useless. So what we have done is we have developed proprietary algorithms to come up with the ETA. And as part of all the visibilities, what we have done is we have identified top stoppage points throughout India. So as soon as the trip is created on our platform, and we know if the truck is going to pass through that point, we know there is likely to be long stoppage. The another interesting thing we learned is when our control tower was operating around Eid and Diwali, we found out a lot of long stoppages. That meant drivers were going home to celebrate the festivals. So we are adding all of those logics into our platform so the manufacturing companies can proactively come up with the ETA and provide the real-time visibility to the consignees. Then another use case I'll cover is, initially I talked about end-to-end process from the sales order to payment reconciliation. I'll pick part of that in terms of when the vehicle comes to the plant and when the payments happen. When we go live with any manufacturing company, we like to use the data they have to kind of show them where their current performance stands and create a baseline. More than 50% of the times we find the data is incorrect, and that's because it's not a real-time visibility and that data was manually entered. But when we find the correct data, our observation has been for transit time of about 4 to 5 days, it takes more than a month for proof of delivery to come back. Because the driver delivers his load, they wait for the return load, then they drive back to transporter office, submit the POD, and then the whole payment cycle is increased. So you can say, always we talk about in terms of processes, value-adding activities and non-value-adding activities. In this case, technically transit time is the most value-adding activity, which is only 5 days out of 68 days. That shows the wastage we have in the transportation process here. And based on this data, then we work with our customers to come up with the targets. And I showed you some of the use cases where we find the top hitters for those transit time delays or the loading delays, and we develop action plan to come up with these targets. The next one is another simple example I'll use is how we can use the data to make operational improvements. We looked at one of the routes where our consignor had designed 7 days as the transit SLA. One thing we have found is all of the SLAs here are more like a guesswork. There is no analysis behind it on how much is the wastage, how much wastage can be reduced, and what is the optimal SLA. One thing we learned is out of 3 transporters, 1 transporter was achieving most of the trips within 5 days. It was a very simple data point for the consignor to change their SLA from 7 days to 5 days, and most of their trips reduced the transit time of 2 days out of 7 days. So significant cost reduction here. And briefly talked about the digitization, briefly talked about the control tower operations. I'll quickly talk about what we are doing about it. And this goes back to the concept of unified platform. What we have done is we have developed the software application we call Freight Platform, which is a unified platform that can be used by all the stakeholders in consignors and all the stakeholders entities like transportation companies, 3PL companies, and the consignors. The benefit for this is when everyone comes to one platform and when you have all the movements on one platform, it creates single version of truth. Can you think about your logistics operation and can you think about one platform where your CEO, COO, VP, SVP, plant head, any one of them can log into a platform and they can find any trip that is happening for your multi-billion-dollar industries. So our whole goal is to enable all the supply chain stakeholders to use technology to improve logistics processes. How we do it is briefly I talked about. We have created this neutral platform and we bring from shipper to logistics companies to brokers to truckers on our platform. Right now we have more than 120 customers, and as the customer count has grown, all of the entities have realized the benefit of having the neutral platform. And to give you an example, multiple consignors might be doing trips on one route. Because we do a lot of trips on that one route, we can create industry benchmarks. The stoppage points we talked about. If any trip is going through that stoppage point, that analysis helps everyone involved in this industry to look at the operational wastages, operational improvement ideas. So we believe in having this unified platform. And okay, so quickly, this is we have talked about the unified platform and the different modules to cover end-to-end processes. But this is what we this is it today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. I want to make a slight change in the speaking order. Mr. Malik, if you don't mind, can I call Mr. Nagat? Because you have a larger subject to cover, so I think I will call the business unit code, GSPL, Mr. Nagat.